In this video, we're going to show you how to install the fuel pump module lock ring on your Jeep Wrangler, located on top of the fuel tank. Using a 19mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. Now that we have all the lug nuts removed, go ahead and loosen, remove the wheel, and set it aside. And on the passenger side rear, we want to go ahead, loosen, and remove these lug nuts. With the wheel loose, go ahead and pull it off and set it aside. Now on the back corner of the vehicle, we want to go ahead and disassemble this assembly right here for the fuel tank filler neck. We're going to use our Phillips head screwdriver, and we want to go ahead and remove the 4 screws around the perimeter. I'm going to start by removing our fuel cap. Go ahead and set that aside. Now sometimes your fuel cap might have a tether or a strap on it that goes into the side right here. Just use a little trim tool, go ahead and pop that out, and you guys set that cap to the side. Once that's off, use your Phillips head screwdriver. Go ahead, loosen and remove the 4 screws. These are securing the filler neck to the bucket right here. Be sure when removing these screws that you're super careful handling these. Do not drop it down the filler neck. What we're going to continue to do is we're going to remove these 4 screws to remove this bucket from the side of the body. You can use the same Phillips head screwdriver to remove these screws. Remove the bucket, set it aside. Now that we have this trim off, go ahead and reinstall your gas cap. This will prevent anything from falling down inside the tank. Now up above our rear axle here, we're going to find the gas tank skid plate, and there are 2 visible 13mm bolts right here, or nuts. You want to go ahead and loosen and remove these nuts. Now on the passenger side forward portion of the tank, there is another bolt right here. Now we didn't remove the 3rd nut here completely yet. What we want to do next is actually put our gas tank support underneath here. And what we're going to do is just gently lift this up just so it's supporting the tank. With that supported, we can now go ahead, loosen and remove that 3rd bolt or nut here. Now on the back side of the tank, closest to the bumper, there's going to be 4 nuts that we need to remove. There's 1 here, and then 2 more on the other side. Now I already went ahead and I used the same 13mm socket that we used to remove the 3 nuts on the front. We have this tank support underneath. Let's go ahead and continue to remove these. Now after you remove the 7 nuts supporting the gas tank in place, we're going to go ahead and lower this down slowly. Now what we want to pay attention to is our filler neck that we disconnected up on the top up there. We can actually gain access to viewing it right through the splash shield here. Just going to pull this down, and you want to look up inside and make sure that the gas tank is coming down with the fill tubes that are attached down here. We also want to pay attention to the fuel lines and the harnesses that are up on top. We're going to drop it down a little bit more so we can get better access up here and start to disconnect everything from the top of the tank. With the tank dropped down, we have the electrical connector right here, and there's a red lock tab on this. We're going to use a flathead screwdriver, and it goes into the lock tab, and we're just going to twist this gently. And you can see the red lock tab drop down here. That's going to allow us to go ahead and push on this spring clip, and we should be able to disconnect the electrical connector like so. Now right here we have our fuel line. It's always good to be wearing safety glasses when doing this here. Now we did open up the fuel tank, the cap itself, and there shouldn't be any fuel pressure left in this, but we're going to push in on these little clips and separate that line. And sometimes it might be there's a little extra debris stuck in these. These are our hose pliers, which has a little claws on there that you can go ahead and pinch this. So try and pinch this here and work that line off. You can see that the clips are now releasing from the line. And we have some residual fuel there. We have our catch can underneath, but there's not a lot there. Just dribbles out a little bit of fuel there. Kind of tuck that up over here for now. Now on the top of the tank right here, there is a three-way split right here. Now this comes up to this vent, it comes over, and then this one here runs up towards the front. Now our plastic tee is probably super brittle because of the age of the vehicle. What you can try and do is pull this hose off of the plastic tee. What we're going to do is simply, because we have excess hose here, not a lot, but enough, I'm going to come back about an inch, inch and a half, and I am going to simply cut this hose. Now I just put a little notch in it right there. I'm going to come on over here with my razor blade. I'm giving it a nice clean cut right through. Use the blade. We're going to cut through the hose on the tee. That's going to allow us to go ahead and remove this piece of hose without damaging the plastic tee. There it is. When we go to reinstall this here, we're simply going to take the hose and slide it right back on, and that will take care of that. We have our fuel line disconnected, we have our electrical connector disconnected, and we have the vent line disconnected. I want to come on over to the fuel filler neck and loosen the two hoses from the side of the tank. Now on this clamp right here, this is a 9mm socket. Yours might be different because we don't know if this has been tampered with before. I'm going to use our 9mm and loosen this hose clamp. So instead of the clamp coming loose, the screw part of it is coming out. Ours is pretty rusted. It's kind of falling apart. There it is. We have that separated. We're going to have to replace that clamp. Not a big issue. We're going to move to the forward hose here. And on ours, that is an 8mm. This hose clamp is pretty rusted as well. We don't want to risk any leaks, so we'll replace this clamp as well. Now I'm going to slowly lower this down. On the top, we have one of these locking clips right here, just like we did on the other side. Just going to pinch in on these little spring-loaded tabs. Now you want to make sure you're doing this in a well-ventilated area. Go ahead and remove the fuel line. Now at this point, we can go ahead and safely remove the electrical connector from the gas tank skid plate. There's a little tab right in here. I'm going to press that in. I want to slide should be able to slide this off of the mounting bracket like so. You can see the little notch right there, and there is the track that it slides into. Let's go to remove our lock ring. We're going to use our lock ring tool. Using a 3/8 ratchet on our tool. Now, if you notice that the fuel pump itself just kind of sprung up a little bit because it is a spring-loaded unit. Going to remove the lock ring. Grab your lock ring. Position this around. Thread that down as far as you can. Let's get our tool and we'll tighten that down. Make sure that the module is facing in the correct position there before you snug this down all the way. I want to make sure that this lock ring is good and tight. All right, and that's not going anywhere. That's solid. Take your fuel pump harness, feed it underneath, and we have our little retainer here. Line that up. Push that through like so. Now our hose clamps here going to our tank are pretty rusted and we don't want to risk any chances of leaks or anything like that. We're simply going to replace these at this time. It's always a good time to do it because you have direct access to them. We're using our 8mm socket. And once again, this is not necessary, but it is good practice to do. Go ahead and do the same on the other side here. Now I'm just putting these screws facing downward. I'm going to put the screw on our outside smaller vent hose on the outside, just the opposite of this side here. With our lock nut secured by hand, we want to go ahead and torque it down to 25 foot-pounds. With that torqued, I'm going to go ahead and spin this around. Let's raise this back up and get it up into the vehicle. Now as you raise this up, you want to pay attention to the filler neck. It's going to go up and over the frame rail and it's going to feed up into the port up by the body. So I'll remove the cap here. Press on our fuel line locking coupler there. We have our vapor line right here. Okay, that's all set. We have our fuel line here. Now the little tabs right here, there's a window on each side that needs to line up with the locking coupler on the top of the module here. Here we go. You push it in, it locks into place. Now we're going to connect the other end of the fuel line. Same thing on this one here. There's a window on either side of this and you need to line it up with the plastic locking coupler. That is locked into place. Now we can connect our harness here. push our red lock tab up into place. Now our fuel lines are attached, our vent line is attached, and our electrical harness is attached. We can go ahead and raise the tank up into position. So at this point here, we're going to raise up our tank and get our studs to come through. I went ahead and replaced the bolts here. Not necessary for you if you don't need to. Ours were pretty rusted and we probably would have had a hard time getting everything to line up properly and for the nuts to go on. Now, as we're raising up the tank itself, not only do we need to focus on the 4 bolts on the back side, but we have the 3 bolts up here. I want to go ahead and make sure that these bolts line up as we go ahead and raise this up into place. We got those up in place. I'm going to go ahead and get the nuts started on these studs. Now that we have these on here, we're going to install the 3rd nut on the forward side of the tank on the passenger side, and then we're going to go ahead and start to tighten these down. With all 7 of the anchoring nuts and bolts installed, let's go ahead and tighten them down. Now these nuts here, you just want to make sure that they're good and tight. Now that we have the entire unit anchored into place and secured, let's go ahead and remove our gas tank lift and move that away. Go ahead and tuck our splash shield up and into place. Now if you want to, now's a good time to go ahead and clean the body of the dirt and debris that's sitting here before we reinstall. Let's remove our fill cap. Let's go ahead and line up our bucket here. I'm just going to get all 4 of these screws started and then we'll snug them down. At this point here, let's go ahead and install our gas cap. It's going to keep any debris from falling down inside of it. Install the 4 screws for the trim bucket or bezel here. With all 4 of them installed, let's go ahead and secure this into place. Now you just want this to sit nice and flush up against the body. You don't have to over tighten it. You can crack the plastic. So just snug them down. Once this is secure, we're going to install our wheels. At that point there, you're all set. I want to go ahead and get the lug nuts all started by hand first, and then we'll come on back and snug them down. Go ahead and install the passenger side wheel. Go ahead and torque down the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.